The calm voice of Ice Firmament reached Lin Dong's ears, and upon hearing these words, a look of disbelief immediately appeared on his face. He looked at Bing Huan, who stood not far away, holding an ice snow sword, confronting him. A girl who had just entered the heaven-merging stage was actually going to be the opponent of a heavenly supreme powerhouse. Lin Dong suddenly became a bit dazed. Then, he looked again at Ice Firmament. "Senior, what does this mean?" "It doesn't have much significance. I just want to see if you can defeat Bing Spirit Clan's rare genius, who has appeared only once in 1,000 years. Don't overthink it," Ice Firmament said, glancing at Lin Dong, his brow slightly furrowed. "Or, do you feel you cannot defeat Xun'er?" Ice Firmament's words made Lin Dong suddenly feel a bit amused. What level was the heaven-merging stage, and what level was Heavenly Supreme? Even if the former had powerful techniques, when these two were compared, it could hardly be called a battle, no matter how strong one of them might be. "Huanhuan, what's going on?" Lin Dong shifted his gaze toward Bing Huan ahead. He still didn't believe that Ice Firmament wanted Bing Huan to fight him. It was more likely some kind of test. "My grandfather wants you to defeat me." "That's what it means," Bing Huan replied. She tightened her grip on the twilight cold sword, and in the next moment, her figure flashed as she charged directly toward Lin Dong. "If you hesitate to attack me because I have part of Xun'er's essence, then you can just let me win." This absurd. Seeing Bing Huan fly toward him, Lin Dong was stunned. But at that moment, something in his memory seemed to be triggered by the scene before him. Lin Dong recalled that back in the Dao sect on the heavenly mystic dimension, he had once fought against Xun'er. Back then, Xun'er was no match for him. But now, the gap between them had grown too large, almost as if an ant was facing Mount Tai. Due to the vast difference between them, Lin Dong didn't prepare to defend when Bing Huan, wielding the twilight cold sword, rushed toward him. He just stood motionless, rooted to the spot. Swish. Standing still, Lin Dong watched as a delicate figure appeared in front of him. Then, the sharp ice sword in Bing Huan's hand, carrying a piercing coldness, thrust directly toward Lin Dong's chest. Yet Lin Dong did not dodge and stood completely still. Seeing his lack of response, Bing Huan was stunned. "Aren't you afraid of death?" Looking at Lin Dong, who showed no reaction, Bing Huan drove the sharp ice sword deeper into his chest. The blade, sharp enough to pierce through the body of a heaven-merging stage expert, touched Lin Dong's chest but did not tear through his skin. It wasn't that Lin Dong was unafraid of death, but that even if he stood there and let Bing Huan attack, she wouldn't be able to harm him. When Bing Huan saw that the twilight cold sword couldn't even pierce Lin Dong's skin, she planned to retract the sword. Since attacking with the blade had no effect, she would try using the Bing Spirit Clan's divine technique. She didn't believe she couldn't shake Lin Dong. Just as she prepared to withdraw the twilight cold sword, a hand slowly rose and suddenly grasped the blade. With a gentle motion of that hand, the ice blade shattered into countless shards of ice right before Bing Huan, while the hand that gripped the sword remained untouched, without a single scratch. The absolute difference in strength was now apparent, and Lin Dong hadn't even exerted any effort. "Step back. You're no match for me," Lin Dong said indifferently, easily crushing the twilight cold sword. "I still have other methods." However, Bing Huan seemed unwilling to give up. She threw away the shattered sword and flashed backward, retreating 100 feet. Lin Dong remained rooted to the spot, looking at her. At this point, Bing Huan began to change the seals in her hands, clearly preparing to perform a divine technique. Just then, Lin Dong waved his hand, and a snowflake-like rune flew out of his body and appeared before Bing Huan. It was the Ice Ancestral Talisman. Seeing the Ice Ancestral Talisman before her, Bing Huan, who was in the middle of performing a divine technique, paused and stopped changing the seals in her hands. She looked at Lin Dong in the distance. "Use this. It still belongs to you," Lin Dong said to Bing Huan. "Humph. If this is yours, don't regret it," Bing Huan said with a sly glint in her eyes, then without hesitation, extended her fair fingers toward the Ice Ancestral Talisman. The Ice Ancestral Talisman had once been an item that followed the Ice Lord for centuries, and the Ice Lord was later revealed to be Huanhuan. Although Huanhuan had reincarnated into the Great Thousand Worlds, no matter what, she remained the most attuned master of the ice ancestral talisman in her past life. So, when her jade-like finger touched the talisman, it seemed as if it had found its former master. It immediately emitted a radiant glow of ice and snow, and then Bing Huan rapidly established a flawless connection with the talisman. However, Bing Huan's strength at the moment was only at the initial stage of the heaven-merging realm. Even in the past heavenly mystic dimension, she would have barely reached the nirvana level. Even if she had obtained the ice ancestral talisman from Lin Dong, the power she could exert from it would make no difference to him. But Bing Huan probably didn't understand the extent of this gap. Ding! After obtaining the ice ancestral talisman and immediately forming a perfect connection with it, Bing Huan activated the talisman's power, and a powerful cold energy erupted around her. This chilling force created a howling storm within 100 feet of her, and Lin Dong was enveloped in it, but he didn't care. Soon, the icy energy surrounding Lin Dong formed a prison of several meters in size, trapping him inside. But for this so-called ice prison, Lin Dong merely lifted his foot, stomped, and the entire ice prison instantly turned to powder. Boom! Just as Lin Dong shattered the ice prison with a single stomp, a brilliant burst of ice and snow light suddenly exploded from ahead. Lin Dong looked up and saw Bing Huan floating in midair, holding a bow and arrow made of ice, already fully drawn. This was no ordinary ice power bow and arrow. It was a powerful move that could only be used after fully unleashing the ice ancestral talisman's power. Swish! As soon as Lin Dong's gaze landed on it, Bing Huan released the string, and the ice arrow, faster than lightning, shot towards him with the power to instantly kill a practitioner in the heaven-merging realm. Heh! Seeing the arrow coming at him, Lin Dong finally made a move. He lightly leaped and appeared in front of the arrow, casually waving his hand. The ice arrow immediately disintegrated into powder, vanishing without a trace. Seeing that Lin Dong had casually neutralized her every attack, Bing Huan became truly anxious this time. Lin Dong hadn't even activated his spiritual energy or physical strength, and yet she had already exhausted all her trump cards. The gap between them was just too large. Swish! Just as Bing Huan began to panic, a figure so fast that she couldn't even see clearly appeared before her. Before she could react, strong arms wrapped around her slender waist. Ah! Bing Huan, who was suddenly embraced by Lin Dong, let out a startled cry and immediately began to struggle. But Lin Dong completely ignored her resistance, holding her tighter, as if he wanted to melt her into his body. Huanhuan, this time, I won't let you leave my sight again. As Bing Huan struggled, she heard Lin Dong's hoarse voice in her ear. At that moment, a warm feeling surged in her heart, and then she gave a sly smile before reaching out to embrace him back. Just like that, after 10 years apart, the two embraced each other in midair. From afar, on the ice god monument, Bing Sangqiong smiled and shook his head helplessly as he watched this scene. Humph! You're bullying me. I give up. After a while in Lin Dong's embrace, Bing Huan patted his back and complained, But can't you let me win once? It's so annoying. Oh, well. Lin Dong was a bit stunned by Bing Huan's words, but then he smiled again. He couldn't deny that Bing Huan still had many similarities with Huanhuan. At least, her spoiled demeanor hadn't changed. Lin Dong let go of Bing Huan but held her hand tightly, as if afraid she might run away. Hee hee, even I, a rare genius of the Ice Spirit clan in 1,000 years, lost to you. I suppose I'm not in the right anymore. A calm voice drifted over from not far away. When Lin Dong and Bing Huan turned to look, Bing Sangqiong's figure was floating down from the ice god monument, landing before them. From now on, you must take good care of my mischievous granddaughter, Bing Sangqiong said with a faint smile, addressing Lin Dong. Hearing this, Lin Dong was momentarily stunned, then quickly bowed and said, Thank you, Senior, for your blessing. Now, Lin Dong finally understood what Bing Sangqiong meant. The reason he had asked Bing Huan to spar with him was to test if he was worthy to take care of her. Everything that had just happened was a trial. There's nothing to thank. I'm just thinking of Huaner's future. Your performance has already proven that you have the strength to protect her. What the Ice Spirit Clan can give her, you can offer even more, Bing Sangqiong said. From now on, you are the highest guest of the Ice Spirit Clan, Xun'er, and you can freely come and go between the Ice Spirit Clan and the martial realm. The younger generation remembers, and I will definitely accomplish it. Lin nodded. Although reaching the perfected Earth Supreme within 10 years seemed far off, he would still strive to achieve it. As for the two new Heavenly Supremes of the Ice Spirit Clan, he already had his own plan, and as for the final unification of the Wandering Realm, Lin would soon give Bing Sangqiong a satisfactory answer. Now that we've agreed on the three matters, we should handle another one. Just as Lin nodded, Bing Sangqiong turned and spoke, his gaze slowly shifting towards the Ice God Monument, wrapped in the cold heaven god's ice. He said, "You must know that a part of Huan'er's spiritual imprint fragments is in the Ice God Monument, right?" "I know," Lin replied with a nod. "Since you've agreed to three things, let me and the Ice Spirit Clan show some support as well." Bing Sangqiong's next words caused Lin's expression to brighten with excitement. "I will help you recover Huan'er's spiritual imprint and all the other reincarnation fragments." Collecting Huan'er's other reincarnation fragments? Bing Sangqiong's words immediately filled Lin with excitement. Before arriving at the Ice Spirit Clan, Ling Qingzhu and the others had learned through their own means that the spiritual imprints of each member of the Ice Spirit Clan were engraved on the Ice God Monument to be used in case of emergencies. Part of Huan'er's reincarnation fragments were actually on that very monument. Originally, Lin had planned to bring this matter up with the Ice Spirit Clan later, because since Bing Sangqiong had already entrusted him with Huan'er, using the Ice God Monument for this purpose might seem a bit too much, so he had planned to wait. But now Bing Sangqiong had proactively offered to help collect all the reincarnation fragments of Huan'er. How could Lin not be thrilled? The Ice God Monument holds the spiritual imprints of every member of the Inner Clan, and naturally, Huan'er's imprint is among them. Over the years, I've consulted with spiritual array masters who are skilled in spiritual imprint construction, and I've learned the best method to gather all the fragments, Bing Sangqiong said with a smile. "Since you're now helping the Ice Spirit Clan to revive, I must show some support too. Senior, what exactly is this method to collect the reincarnation fragments?" Lin asked eagerly. "It's a method called spirit conduction, which, in simple terms, is like fishing. However, the bait this time is the spiritual imprint of Huan'er that resides in the Ice God Monument. Using this method, you don't need to search the entire world for the other fragments. As long as the fragments haven't reincarnated into a person, they can be drawn here. It's somewhat similar to the soul calling technique, which is one of the dark arts, but in the eyes of spiritual array masters, spirit conduction isn't considered a dark art," Bing Sangqiong explained. "Senior, does the spirit conduction technique require other costs?" Lin asked. If they could collect all the scattered reincarnation fragments with just one spiritual imprint, it would be too easy. "There is indeed a cost," Bing Sangqiong said. "It requires an enormous amount of supreme spiritual liquid. Using a spiritual array master's method, the range of the conduction can cover a radius of 1 billion miles. Just for a single day, it requires millions of supreme spiritual liquid, and if you want to extend the range by 10 times, the amount required increases 100-fold. If you want to search for all the fragments across the Great Thousand Worlds, the range should ideally cover the entire world, which means that in one day, it would cost at least 50 million supreme spiritual liquid, and in 1 month, that would amount to 1.5 billion. Bing Sangqiong smiled again at Lin and added, "Such a massive amount of supreme spiritual liquid, I'm afraid your martial realm might not be able to cover it. So, let the Ice Spirit Clan help you out. With the current reserves of the Ice Spirit Clan, sustaining the spirit conduction for several months should be no problem. Senior, I will definitely repay the Ice Spirit Clan for these supreme spiritual liquids," Lin immediately said, cupping his hands. With Bing Sangqiong and the Ice Spirit Clan's help, collecting the remaining reincarnation fragments of Huan'er would clearly be much more efficient. "You don't need to worry about repayment," Bing Sangqiong replied with a smile. "Don't be too quick to sever ties with the Ice Spirit Clan over these resources. After all, if 50 to 60 billion supreme spiritual liquid can help us gain 2 heavenly supremes, it's a good deal for the Ice Spirit Clan. By the way, Senior, who is the spiritual array master?" Lin asked again. Although there was now a way to collect the reincarnation fragments of Huan'er, Lin was curious to know who had provided this method to Bing Sangqiang, someone with extraordinary mastery in spiritual arrays. Lin also wondered if he would need to meet this person when performing the spirit conduction technique, and if he didn't know him, he wouldn't be able to fully trust him. The spiritual array master is the first elder of the Ice Spirit clan. He's one of my most trusted aides. Perhaps you've already met him. Upon hearing this, Lin Dong began recalling the powerful Ice Spirit clan warriors he had fought earlier on the Ice Spirit continent. However, these warriors had engaged him in a war of attrition, and there were many of them, so it was impossible for Lin Dong to remember them all. If he had to single out a few, the ones he remembered most clearly were Cold Sky King, the Three Ice Emperors, and Lung Feng. But upon hearing that the first elder of Ice Firmament was Ice Firmament's trusted right-hand man, Lin Dong relaxed. Someone who enjoyed such trust from Ice Firmament was, for the most part, someone he could trust as well. Senior, what should we do next? Lin Dong asked Ice Firmament. Since they now had a method, the next step should be to retrieve Huan'er's spiritual seal from within the Ice God Monument. Heh, you're getting anxious already. But I can understand your eagerness, so I won't keep you waiting, Ice Firmament said with a faint smile upon seeing Lin Dong's urgency. He then turned around and waved his hand towards the Ice God Monument behind him. Whoosh! As Ice Firmament waved his hand, the icy layer that enveloped the Ice God Monument rapidly melted away. Gradually, a massive ice crystal stele, about several thousand feet in height, began to emerge from within the ice. The stele was completely transparent, and when Lin Dong focused his gaze on it, he felt a strange sensation, a vast feeling, as if the translucent ice crystal stele contained another vast world within. This is our clan's ancestral artifact, the Ice God Monument. Inside it is a space dedicated to storing the spiritual seals of our clan members. The number of seals there is greater than the current members of the Ice Spirit clan, Ice Firmament explained. The Ice God Monument had inherited over 10,000 years of history, during which countless generations of the Ice Spirit clan had passed. Every generation's spiritual seal had been preserved within it. Given the long lifespan of the monument, these seals would only begin to fade after at least several 100,000 years. So many spiritual seals? How are we going to find Huan'ers? Lin Dong asked, gazing at the Ice God Monument. Someone will help you find it. Such matters are nothing difficult for our ancestors, Ice Firmament assured him. Ancestors? Lin Dong was taken aback. Could it be that there were others inside the Ice God Monument? That would be our clan's first ruler, known as the Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign. During the world-ending war, he was one of the most powerful beings, and after his fall, some of his heavenly soul fragments were preserved within the Ice God Monument. Over the millennia, all the spiritual seals have been managed by our Ice Spirit ancestors. However, for various reasons, he cannot leave the Ice God Monument, Ice Firmament explained. Ice Spirit, Heavenly Sovereign. Hearing Ice Firmament's words, Lin Dong immediately remembered the heavenly supreme aura he had sensed millions of miles away. Could it be that this was the Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign? One of the 10 great ancient powerhouses, the Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign, still had fragments of his heavenly soul left within the Ice Spirit clan? At that moment, Lin Dong felt curious. Since the Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign had part of his heavenly soul remaining, why didn't the Ice Spirit clan invite a top-tier alchemist to use resurrection techniques to revive him? If they could do that, wouldn't the revival of the Ice Spirit clan be much easier? But Lin Dong quickly realized the flaw in this idea. To resurrect a being as powerful as the Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign would require an extraordinary alchemist. Even within the Great Thousand Worlds, it was doubtful whether the Pill God clan or the ancient Myriad Grasslands could find someone capable of such a feat. Heh, I've already met the Ice Spirit ancestor. He holds you in high regard, Huan'er smiled at Lin Dong. She had wrapped her arm around his, becoming unusually clingy. You've met the Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign? Lin Dong asked, suddenly recalling how Huan'er had been sent by Ice Firmament to do something when they were on the Ice Spirit continent. It seemed that her task had been to meet the legendary Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign. Yes, the ancestor also wants to see you. Shall we go visit the Ice God Monument world together? Huan'er asked. See me? This? Lin Dong was somewhat stunned. Heh, It is indeed the Ice Spirit Ancestor's wish. So, the next step is to retrieve Xun'er's spiritual seal, and perhaps you'll need to enter the Ice God Monument world with her, Ice Firmament explained. Lin Dong shrugged. Since it was like this, he had no choice but to visit this so-called Ice God Monument world. Besides, as one of the 10 great ancient powerhouses, Lin Dong was eager to meet the Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign himself. Senior, should we enter the Ice God Monument space now? Lin Dong asked. I knew you'd be in a hurry, so of course it's now, Ice Firmament replied. However, the environment here isn't suitable for retrieving spiritual seals. Lin Dong nodded, looking at Bing Huan, who was holding his arm. He smiled again, this time with the resolve to repay all the debts he owed to Xun'er in the past. To the north of the Wandering Realm, in the Martial Realm. At this moment, the 4 profound continents were trembling slightly, and the source of this tremor came from a distant place. Far off on the continent, several figures stood suspended in the air, gazing at the distant horizon, which was the direction of the Ice Spirit clan. Second brother, this is the second wave of fluctuations. Among the group, a tall and sturdy man, as massive as a tiger, looked incredulously at the distant sky and spoke. He was none other than the Yin King of the Martial Realm, Lin Yin. About 10 minutes ago, a tremor from the direction of the Ice Spirit clan was felt by everyone in the Martial Realm. Now, a second wave of tremors had come, clearly indicating that something terrifying was happening in the Ice Spirit clan. The few figures suspended in midair knew exactly what this meant. It seems that Lin Dong has already engaged in battle with the Heavenly Supreme of the Ice Spirit clan. What terrifying power! The force has even spread here. Standing beside Yin, the sharp-eyed little mink spoke. It's truly frustrating. We can't be of any help. Brother Lin Dong will definitely make it. Apart from Yin and little mink, the last person present was Qing Tan. Let's hope so. Lin Dong has been creating miracles all along. Hopefully, this time, he can bring not only an unexpected turn for the Ice Spirit clan, but also one for the entire Wandering Realm and the Great Thousand Worlds, little mink said. All we need to do now is wait. Soon, the news of what happened to the Ice Spirit clan will spread. Yin and Qing Tan nodded. At this moment, in other parts of the Wandering Realm, the tremors from the direction of the Ice Spirit clan had drawn the attention of several powerful forces. Some speculated that the Ice Spirit clan's experts were attempting to break through to the Heavenly Supreme Realm, while others guessed that there was an internal strife in the Ice Spirit clan. However, while many forces in the Wandering Realm focused their attention on the Ice Spirit clan, a large-scale plan was quietly unfolding. In the western part of the Wandering Realm, there was a barren mountain range, and deep within it stood a concealed pavilion. At this moment, within the pavilion, 3 figures were present. 2 men stood respectfully, their strength having reached the Earth's supreme level. However, despite their Earth's supreme powers, they did not dare to show any disrespect to the elderly figure sitting with his back to them, as they knew who this person was. Although the elderly figure had concealed his aura very well, the 2 men standing behind him still felt as if they were submerged in the depths of the sea, unable to breathe. They understood that the power of this ancient person was far beyond their reach. Crackle. At this time, the concealed pavilion trembled slightly. Clearly, the tremor from the Ice Spirit clan had also affected this place. However, the 3 people in the pavilion paid no attention to the disturbance. The 2 Earth Supremes stood respectfully behind the ancient figure, not daring to speak, but the ancient figure finally spoke. How did you find me? The ancient voice was heavy, filled with an indescribable weariness, as if he had lived for thousands of years. In reality, this person had lived for over 50,000 years, and in terms of age, he could easily rank among the top 15 in the Great Thousand Worlds. However, the current Great Thousand Worlds had nearly forgotten about him. The Palace Lord found records about you in an ancient tome. One of the men behind him explained. What do you want with me? The ancient figure asked directly. Huamu Elder, our Palace Lord is waiting for your return. With your strength, unifying the Wandering Realm will be no problem. We are willing to serve you as your vassals, helping you conquer all directions. Even the Ice Spirit clan, we are not afraid of them, one of the men said. But before he could finish, the ancient figure, who had been facing away, uttered a soft, "Oh," and then casually waved his hand. In the next moment, the man who had spoken felt his body lighten, and then the world around him began to turn upside down. Heaven and earth control? Huamu Elder, you? Before the man could finish his words, the other man saw his figure disappear. In the next instant, the man who had spoken felt his aura and life force rapidly weaken, as though his strength was drained. In less than a moment, the man's presence completely dissipated from the world. An Earth Supreme expert had perished just like that. Leave. I have no interest in participating in these external conflicts, and I advise you to cherish your present situation. You haven't seen true destruction, but I have witnessed it many times. The ancient figure, known as Huamu Elder, waved his hand again and said indifferently, "When the world-ending calamity strikes again, you'll realize how naive you are now." Upon hearing this, the last remaining man could only clench his teeth in helplessness. Though one of his companions had been casually wiped out, he didn't dare make a move in front of Elder Huamu, knowing he was no match for him. However, the man didn't leave immediately. He spoke, "Since you are not leaving the world, I won't linger. But the Hall Master has something to convey to you." "I will give you 3 seconds," Elder Huamu said indifferently. "The successor of the sacred drum, Heavenly Sovereign, has appeared in the great thousand worlds, and it's in the wandering realm." The man quickly delivered his message. After that, he turned to leave. But just as the man turned around, Elder Huamu's stern voice suddenly echoed from behind, shaking the heavens and reverberating throughout the universe. "Stop!" Hearing the command, the man froze, slowly turning around. As he did, he saw Elder Huamu, who had been sitting the whole time, finally stand up. Although still facing away from him, the words, filled with excitement, reached the man's ears. "Tell me, who is the successor of the sacred drum, Heavenly Sovereign?" Half a day later, in the northern region of the Ice Spirit Continent's inner domain. This area was once accessible to the Ancestral land, but now it had become a forbidden zone for the Ice Spirit clan. The vast expanse of snow-covered mountains stretching over millions of miles appeared ruined and shattered. Countless towering peaks had crumbled into fragments, and the deep chasms, tens of thousands of miles long, had torn the terrain apart. Anyone able to view the scene from an altitude of hundreds of thousands of miles would witness a visually stunning spectacle. The northern part of the Ice Spirit Continent, which spanned nearly 10 million miles, now looked like a spider's web, with pieces of land slowly drifting away, resembling massive icebergs floating on an endless sea. This was destruction that even ordinary heavenly supremes couldn't cause. Buzz. Above the shattered valley, the sky suddenly distorted, rapidly forming a massive dimensional portal tens of thousands of feet wide. Through this portal, one could see a frozen world, accompanied by chaotic and violent waves of energy. Beyond this portal lay the ancestral land of the Ice Spirit clan, the Ice Fire dimension. When the dimensional portal opened, a massive object, several thousand feet long, emerged from it with a sweeping motion. It was a giant ice crystal monument, several thousand feet tall, carrying immense symbolic significance for the Ice Spirit clan. That was the Ice God Monument. Boom! The massive Ice God Monument fell into the valley below, sending shockwaves that further sank the shattered land. However, the cold stone monument itself was unharmed. Swoosh! 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 After the Ice God Monument was sent out of the portal, several figures appeared above the valley. Among them, one was an elderly man dressed in white robes, the Grand Elder of the Ice Spirit clan. With him were Lin Dong and Bing Huan. Lin Dong was holding Bing Huan's hand, and she was leaning against him, as if afraid they might be separated again. The Ice God Monument is currently unclaimed, and can only remain outside the Ancestral land for a short period, roughly a month. After that, you and Xun'er will enter it and handle things as you see fit, said Bing Tsangqiong, standing with one hand behind his back. He then snapped his fingers, and a faint blue beam of light fell on the Ice God Monument. Buzz. With Bing Tsangqiong's light beam, the Ice God Monument seemed to be activated, emitting a humming sound. Lin Dong saw the monument slowly being enveloped in a blue light, transforming into a giant blue crystalline structure. On the surface of this massive crystal, a swirling vortex appeared, dark blue in color. "Thank you, Elder. I will repay the Ice Spirit Clan for their kindness," Lin Dong said, bowing slightly. Bing Huan smiled brightly beside him. "Go ahead. I hope you can bring some unexpected surprises to the ancestors of the Ice Spirit Clan," Bing Sangqiong said. "As for the Spirit Seal, I will prepare it for you during this time." "All right," Lin Dong nodded, then turned to Bing Huan with a faint smile. "Huan'er, are you ready? It's time to go in." I'm ready," Bing Huan replied with a smile. Lin Dong then lifted her up and flew toward the strange vortex floating on the Ice God monument. Holding Bing Huan in his arms, Lin Dong effortlessly swept into the Ice God monument. Soon, in the midst of the shattered valley, only Bing Sangqiong remained. After about a dozen breaths, Bing Sangqiong slightly raised his head and noticed the distortion in space not far away. Two familiar figures then materialized. It was Long Feng and the First Elder. "Grand Elder, how did the Ice God monument get moved out?" The First Elder asked in disbelief after seeing the Ice God monument standing in the broken valley. Long Feng also squinted, confused. "It was the Ice Spirit Ancestor who wanted to see Lin Dong," Bing Sangqiong said. He then waved his hand at the First Elder and Long Feng. "I'll find time to explain everything in detail, but for now, let me tell you two things. First, Bing Huan has successfully established a connection with the Ice God monument. Once her cultivation reaches the level of the Earth Supreme, this Ice God monument will acknowledge her as its master. Second, Lin Dong has agreed to the two requests." Upon hearing this, both the First Elder and Long Feng froze for a moment. They naturally understood the significance of establishing a connection with the Ice God monument. As for the two requests that Bing Sangqiong mentioned, they were already aware of them, helping the Ice Spirit Clan add 2 Heavenly Supremes and unifying the Wandering Realm. In fact, Bing Sangqiong's requests to Lin Dong were not just limited to those two. His own additional request for Lin Dong to reach the perfected Earth Supreme was something he hadn't shared with Long Feng and the others. Of course, Bing Sangqiong didn't actually expect Lin Dong to meet that extra request. It was merely a way to pressure him. "By the way, Grand Elder, the Ice Spirit Clan's affairs have already attracted some external attention. What should we do next?" The First Elder asked. "If others are concerned about the Ice Spirit Clan, let them be. It's no big deal. But there's something you need to do next," Bing Sangqiong replied. He then proceeded to relay Lin Dong's promise regarding spirit conduction to the First Elder. "Grand Elder, the amount of supreme spiritual liquid required for this is enormous." The First Elder was taken aback after hearing Bing Sangqiong's plan to use 50 to 60 billion supreme spiritual liquid to collect Bing Huan's other reincarnation fragments. "Grand Elder, isn't Bing Huan doing fine right now? There's no need to collect all the fragments. The effort and rewards don't match up," the First Elder remarked. "Just do as I say. Consider it a favor, even if it takes the whole clan's strength," Bing Sangqiong insisted. Hearing this, the First Elder still felt it was unreasonable. However, seeing the determined look on Bing Sangqiong's face, he knew the latter was serious. But the First Elder's heart ached at the thought. After all, 60 billion supreme spiritual liquid could train a whole generation of young talents. "Sigh, leave the Spirit Seal formation to me. But it's quite large, so I'll need at least 2 months to set it up," the First Elder sighed, reluctantly agreeing. Still, he was in pain, as if his heart was bleeding. This was the most unreasonable request he had ever heard. In a deep blue space world, it seemed there was no distinction between up and down, or north, south, east, and west. The only thing present was an oppressive, suffocating shade of blue. In this deep blue space, countless floating orbs of light drifted around. Each orb was roughly the size of a fist, but their number was beyond count. Combined with the suffocating atmosphere, anyone who found themselves here would likely think they were at the bottom of the ocean. Lin Dong and Bing Huan had arrived here. As soon as they entered, Lin Dong immediately noticed the orbs of light floating around them. Against the backdrop of this deep sea-like scene, the orbs appeared like bubbles floating in the vast ocean. However, Lin Dong quickly noticed something faintly visible within the orbs. It was a series of spirit seals, and their owners were clearly members of the inner clan of the Ice Spirit Clan. "Grandfather, this is the Spirit Sea," Bing Huan explained. "I previously entered with my consciousness, but this time I'm here in person. It feels quite different." "It does feel strange. Everything here seems frozen in time," Lin Dong remarked. He hadn't expected the interior of the Ice God Monument to be such a space. He had imagined it to be a world like the one he once owned, such as the heaven-burning cauldron. "Of course. Grandfather told me that the flow of time here is much slower than outside. Several hundred times slower, I think. Because of this, items that can last for a century in the outside world can remain for tens of thousands of years here. Time slowed down by several hundred times." Upon hearing this, Lin Dong was slightly taken aback. He had heard of strange worlds where time could flow faster or slower by several times, or even 10 times, such as the Ancestral Palace of the Heavenly Mystic Dimension, which had a 10-fold time difference. But now, in this so-called Spirit Sea, time could actually be slowed down by hundreds of times. What kind of transcendental beings must have created something so close to defying the heavens? Wait, if it's hundreds of times slower, then an entire year outside would only pass as a single day here? Lin Dong suddenly seemed to realize something. Just now, Senior Ice Firmament said the Ice God Monument could only be used for 1 month externally. So, does that mean we have less than 2 hours of time left? I didn't calculate it carefully, but it should be right. Bing Huan was also a little confused. Time is too short. Quickly look for your spiritual mark, and that senior ice spirit ancestor, Lin Dong urged. He immediately began extending his spiritual energy in search of the heavenly soul fragments of the ice spirit, heavenly sovereign. Fortunately, although there was no heavenly power here, at least spiritual energy could still be used. Just as Lin Dong was about to use his spiritual energy to search for the ice spirit, heavenly sovereign's fragments, a deep voice suddenly resonated from somewhere deep within the Spirit Sea. "You're Lin Dong, aren't you?" The deep voice from the depths of the Spirit Sea made Lin Dong, who was preparing to detect with his spiritual energy, freeze. Next to him, Bing Huan immediately spoke up. "That's the Ice Spirit Ancestral Master." Upon hearing Bing Huan, Lin Dong nodded. It seemed they no longer had to expend effort searching for the Ice Spirit, Heavenly Sovereign. "Junior Lin Dong, from a lower dimension, I apologize for disturbing Senior Ice Spirit," Lin Dong respectfully addressed the surrounding deep blue space. "I know you. Bing Huan has already mentioned you to me," the voice came again from the Spirit Sea. "Hee, you're a person full of potential. Although I've only heard about you from Bing Huan, I believe you might be one of the most important figures in the Great Thousand Worlds in the future, so I wanted to meet you." "Senior Ice Spirit, where are you?" Lin Dong asked into the surrounding Spirit Sea. "Part of my heavenly soul has merged with the entire Spirit Sea, so I'm essentially everywhere within it. Everything you see here is me," the voice came again. "Because Ice Firmament moved the Ice God Monument to the Ice Spirit Continent, I know that your time is limited, so let's keep things short." "As you wish, Senior Ice Spirit," Lin Dong nodded. "This is Bing Huan's spiritual mark. You might need it, right?" the voice echoed. Then Lin Dong saw a glowing orb drifting toward him, floating in front of him. Inside this orb, a spiritual mark, about the size of a fingernail, could be seen faintly. Lin Dong felt a familiar aura emanating from it, the same as Bing Huan's. Clearly, this was Bing Huan's spiritual mark. "Thank you, Senior Ice Spirit," Lin Dong said, taking the floating spiritual mark and respectfully bowing to the surrounding Spirit Sea. "No need for thanks. The Ice Spirit Clan may need your help in the future. Ice Firmament's insight is truly sharp," the voice said, "but time is short. I have things to give to Bing Huan and some words to say to you." "Something for me?" Upon hearing this, Bing Huan was slightly stunned. She then saw, from the depths of the dark blue space, a white glowing orb drifting toward them. This orb was larger than the surrounding spiritual mark orbs. What puzzled both Lin Dong and Bing Huan was that the orb contained nothing at all. What could the Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign want to give Bing Huan? "This is a path that can reset everything to zero," a road that goes against spiritual energy cultivation but completely surpasses the powers that heavenly and earthly spiritual energy can grant you. Bing Huan, this is the last thing I can do for you, but you might not understand it right now. When you grow older, use it to protect the Ice Spirit clan. The voice from the Spirit Sea came again. Upon hearing this, Bing Huan was still confused about the meaning of the Ice Spirit, Heavenly Sovereign's words, but she still reached out to touch the white glowing orb. As soon as she did, the orb disappeared. At the same time, something seemed to suddenly appear in Bing Huan's mind, and on the surface of this new thing, a phrase was written. The cold path, the end of all things, dissolving everything with true 0 degrees, returning everything to its original state, for the way of heaven and earth. Although Bing Huan didn't understand what this phrase meant, the fact that the Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign had given her something was undoubtedly significant. However, as the new things in her mind overwhelmed her, Bing Huan had to close her eyes and sit down to organize the information she had just received. I've heard all of your conditions, including those from Bing Tsangqiang, came the voice of Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign from the Spirit Sea. As for the first condition, I hope you don't take it seriously. Although it's outrageous, what I really don't want is for you to go to any lengths to reach that level. If you end up ruining your foundation, it would be a huge loss. I naturally know my limits. Power may be desirable, but if it isn't earned step by step, that kind of power is better left unachieved, Lin Dong responded. Good mentality, as expected from someone walking the great path, Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign remarked. Lin Dong wasn't surprised that Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign knew he was walking the great path. After all, Bing Tsangqiang had already investigated his background thoroughly, and passing that information along to Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign wouldn't be difficult. If we don't compare with that guy, the Upper Spirit King, then Sacred Drum Heavenly Sovereign was one of the strongest people in the Great Thousand Worlds back in the day. Even I wouldn't be his match, Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign continued. Hearing this, Lin Dong couldn't help but smile faintly. Over the years, he had heard many legendary tales about Sacred Drum Heavenly Sovereign, but to hear that even Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign, one of the top 10 super powerful beings, acknowledged this figure's strength was somewhat unexpected. What intrigued Lin Dong even more was the Upper Spirit King. Who was this person, for Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign to avoid comparison with him? Years ago, during the ritual at the True Dragon God Emperor's sacred ground, Lin Dong had gained a rough understanding of the 10 super powerful beings in the ancient Great Thousand World. Among them, the most mysterious was the Upper Spirit King. This was someone who had slain both the Holy Emperor and the Great Holy Emperor of the extraterritorial races, yet mysteriously vanished as if he had evaporated from the world. Ice Spirit Senior, may I ask, who exactly is the Upper Spirit King? Lin Dong couldn't help but inquire. Some matters from ancient times were hard to uncover, even when scouring old texts. Even Elder Song likely wouldn't fully understand the events of the ancient Great Thousand World. But Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign was different. He was from that very era and one of its top 10 figures. With his knowledge, he might know much more about the Upper Spirit King. You ask about the Upper Spirit King? We don't even call him a human, came Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign's faint laughter. Putting the Upper Spirit King alongside the 9 of us is actually quite an insult to him. Why is that? Lin Dong asked, surprised. From Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign's description, the Upper Spirit King seemed to be becoming more and more exaggerated. I've seen the current records of the Upper Spirit King in the Great Thousand World, Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign said. A Great Holy Emperor, a Holy Emperor? That kind of achievement isn't even enough to fill a gap in the Upper Spirit King's teeth. Do you know why the Upper Spirit King disappeared in the end? Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign added. Lin Dong shook his head. Such matters weren't even recorded in the True Dragon Clan's archives, so how could he possibly know? I happen to have some dealings with the Upper Spirit King back in the day, so I know about certain hidden matters. Fire Spirit Heavenly Sovereign and Futu Sacred King probably also know some of these things. Ice Spirit Heavenly Sovereign explained.